Okay, welcome back to Chucky's Corner. In the previous videos I said I'm working on two builds at the same time. One of them is my L&L project, which I've started to test the CPU and everything on the motherboard on the bench, and the other is the Green Guardian. And so I want to touch on a few things that in this process to share with you, you beginners, about some things I found on YouTube, and I would kind of disagree with some of the things, but I agree with other things. One of the things I said earlier on my video about pre-planning is that you need to plan for where you would like to be 5 years from now. Okay. Now, if you're a gamer, okay, you know that 5 years from now you'd probably be upgrading your video card, because for gamers, video card really is everything. CPU is not so much. Okay, unless you got a really old CPU. But try to buy the newest you can in that, and you'll be good for 5 years. Now, what I want to talk about in a minute is how to extend that, life in there. The biggest thing that deteriorates CPUs, quite frankly, is heat. Running those things up and letting that temperature stay high as you're gaming. So you really need to invest in good cooling. Now, basically the rule of thumb is this. You really want, with fully loaded, I mean just running that CPU to its max, you really want to keep that temperature down to about 50, no more than 60% of its max operating temperature by the manufacturer. So with Intel on their iCore system, they run a little bit more than 100 degrees is where they say the max is. So if you have a standard cooling, which I showed you in the previous way, just a little cooling that comes on top, you're still going to be running around 70, 80 degrees easily off that CPU. You can cool it down a little bit by putting yourself in a nice air-conditioned room that you keep around 50, 60 degrees. But there is two things that affect your cooling. One, of course, is your fan system. We've talked about that. Try to maximize your fan so that you get a positive pressure in the case. You have some nice openings that will help push the heat out, and of course using good fans for pulling and pushing. But the biggest cooling is really the second thing, which really actually is the most important, is the unit you use to pull that heat right off the CPU. And the basic fans that now come really won't do the job. Really won't. And for a few dollars more, you can get things that can be. So, I want to demonstrate this one here. This is the, what did I do with the box? I did something with the box. Oh, here it is. Okay. This, I'm not putting it on mine. I'm putting the Corsair H100 on. This is actually going to go on the Green Guardian. But this is the Coolmaster Hyper 212 VVO, okay? It comes with a fan. I've traded out the fans because my granddaughter wants light, so we're going to be doing some light. Fans are easy to change out. But I wanted to demonstrate that one of the things I maybe didn't clarify, I like to go slowly and build my system up so I can see what it works. And when you put your basic power on, like I have on this board, there's no memory, there's no CPU, you should still be able to power it on. And here I have this connected to my fans, and what I want you to notice is when I turn it on, okay, if everything's working right, I'll get an on light, which I will push. The on light will then I'll bring it on and it'll start to try to power up, and one of the first things it does is it brings these fans up to power. Now because I'm using the CPU controllers to regulate the fans, they're going to power up in the very beginning, and then the BIOS that monitors the sensors will actually bring them down, because hey, you don't need that much fan going because of the cooling. Now there's no, like I said, there's no CPU, so it's just an illusion on that end. So if I do that, I have my power on light over here. That's what I'm going to be using. And all I got to do is turn on the power and watch what happens to the fans. That tells me I have power, distribution's doing well, and notice they started spinning back down. And that's because there's not the demand for the airflow. Okay. Now, when I watch the videos for people installing these things, there's a couple things that I'd probably smack them if I was their boss. One is that when they put the CPU on, they're the few that touch with your fingers. Remember, fingers have oil on them, and so if you think you did, and maybe if you're not sure you did, after you put your CPU on, just get some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip, rub it, clean it off nice, let it dry for a bit, because that's where you're going to put your heating compound on. I like to use the diamond type heating compound. It maximizes it. The other thing I saw was that on this unit here, and this is the part that goes onto the CPU itself with a clamp, people will tear this tape off, it's just a sticky tape, and then they go and put it on top of the CPU. This has got sticky tape on it. Okay, so you need to make sure you clean that off with your isopropyl and let it dry too. It takes about a minute, and then everything's clean, and then you can start installing it. Now in the install, take the fans off. It's so much easier to be able to get the brackets, because the brackets go in here and the thumb screws are right here. So you can just slip these. They're just little plastic clamps. You just unclamp it and you take it off. I've set this up for a push-pull. It'll go like this on the motherboard. Air will come in, air goes out. So this is pulling air in, or pushing air in. This is pulling air through, and then it will set in front of the exhaust fans in the back of the tray, and then that will continue to pull off. Now again, one of the things that happened with the case, now this, remember, this is the Guardian case. It's designed for Pentium. It's not designed for these new iCores and everything. And so you've got to deal with cooling. And I'm not going to tear this part of the thing apart to put everything else. And I can't put a H100 in there for cooling. So that's why I'm going with this guy. Well, this guy has had a couple things that forced me to change. And one of them that is that I had to cut a hole in the back of the case so that when you put the motherboard on, this is the motherboard. So when you put it on, this mounting bracket that you mount underneath is not, basically it'd be sitting on the bottom of the tray, and you really would not have enough standoffs to fix it. If you put bigger standoffs on, you'll never get the I/O shield to go in right. Your I/O, if you put that, will not sit right. So you have to cut a hole for access here, And that's fine because it gives you a little more air. Not much, but a little bit more air. And if you ever decide to want to upgrade, you can do that, and you got your hole done already. Okay. So those are the things that I ran into. The other thing I ran into, and I'll use that there, is this will sit on the CPU. I'll use it here. It sits on like this, and you probably can't see it because of where I have the camera, but it sits right over slot 1 and 2 of your memory card. Now, you can use low level cards that'll fit in there, and that'll be fine. Mine are a little bit higher. So you have some options. One of the options is, quite frankly, is you can actually move the fan up a bit, and that brings it up, and you can get it in there if you want to use slot 1 and 3. I will use slot 2 and 4. I'm only putting 2 cards in. I'll use slot 2 and 4, and that works out fine. Because when you're only running 2 16s, or 2 8s rather than you're putting 16s, or you're running two slots, period, 2 cards, you only have to put them in 2 slots. They just have to be the correct slots, either 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, and that's how it works. So I think I've covered most of these little things I want to talk about on these 2 projects. So the next time you see this, I will probably have the Green Guardian put together, and we'll start in the testing phase and start seeing what we're going to do about the lights and stuff. Anyway, this is Chucky's Corner. Just some ideas, some thoughts. Have a good day.